All right, so the skits were kind of our fun way of getting through this content, and now you guys get to sit through like 5 pages of really dry, highly specific safety content. And if you can manage to pull that off, then you get to be members. So this is our safety procedure for this semester. And all Railside Robotics members and associates will adhere to the following general practices while participating in club activities. Demonstrations for all tools and materials will be provided to members at least once. If a member is still unsure of how to properly use a tool or material, they will be expected to ask to be shown again. Some of the responsibility does fall to you. If you are at all unsure, just ask. It's that simple. We're all here to learn. We're going to be doing like every meeting after this week is going to have lessons on all kinds of stuff. So don't hesitate. It's just way better to do it the right way and have no problems. Especially because consequences of members not demonstrating safe and proper practices, this is regardless of your explanation for it, will be the member being temporarily banned from the tool or material until an executive board member can verify that that member is prepared to use it again. Extreme negligence or poor practice will result in a permanent ban from the tool or material in question. Repeated instances of misuse or poor practice can result in a permanent ban from the club. If members are negligent and do not follow guidelines, Railside Robotics will not be responsible, and neither will Purdue. Regarding batteries, safe charging practices are as such. You should always inspect a battery for damage or puffiness before you charge it. Don't use a puffy or damaged battery and notify an executive board member. Again, if you have a question, like there's just a superficial looking scratch, it's just better to check. A team member must be present while a battery is charging. You don't have to be staring at it the whole time, but you have to be near it. You have to be aware. If we have a pile of batteries in the corner that nobody is watching and they all go up in flames, then we're in deep shit. So also, for any battery that this applies to, you need to use balance charge leads. Ours are kind of set up so that it's idiot proof. You can't really use them wrong if you're plugging them into the charger, but also
not a challenge.
That's not a challenge you
that's
should
not a
accept.
What a challenge is for.
Yeah, if you accept that challenge, you might be getting banned. I'll put it that way.
Will be. There's none of mine.
Also, keep safe, a lipo-safe bag, heat-resistant glove, and tongs nearby. The club will be bringing these materials. You don't have to bring your own bag of sand to every meeting. You can if you want.
This is what our lipo-safe bag looks like. So if you ever have a question of where to put the battery when you're done with it, it'll go in here.
You also, again, for adjustable chargers, you want to set an appropriate charge rate. And again, if you're unsure, just ask. In the event of a battery fire, a fire extinguisher should always be on hand when a battery is in use. These might just be the building's closest fire extinguisher. You should use this extinguisher to prevent the fire from spreading to the surroundings. However, no fire extinguisher in existence can extinguish a lipo fire. It's not possible. They will continue to burn no matter what you do to them until they are done. You should not hesitate to continue down this list if there is no extinguisher. Again, the extinguisher is only going to stop the fire from spreading to the surroundings. You want to use heat-resistant gloves and tongs to place the battery into the metal bucket of sand and cover it with sand as best as you can. As quickly and carefully as possible, you want to carry the bucket or pot outside and away from people and other flammable materials. Wait for the battery to completely burn and ensure that it is buried in sand before disposing of it in the proper battery disposal receptacle. After a battery is toast, just go ahead and let somebody know and the executives can dispose of it. Do not run when you're carrying a flaming lipo battery. Just walk quickly, and if you can, have somebody get the doors for you. Regarding safety glasses, eye protection must be worn by any member working with or near tools that require electricity. This includes drills, Dremels, robot batteries, and soldering irons, and even if you're just near a robot. If it is powered on, there's a significant chance that it could jump up and bite you in the eye. It might not. Some tools are less likely to do it than others, but it could happen. And again, that applies even if you are near the tool. You don't have to be the person using it. You also should be wearing safety glasses while you're using any cutting instruments, like a knife, and this includes even a putty scraper or something like that to use for removing support from a 3D printed part. Those supports can crack and fly around. Yes?
So we let these knives in the room.
Yes. Using a soldering iron, you should always use a fume extractor and don't burn or melt yourself or anything else except for the solder. Just don't play with it. Use forceps and helping hands when they apply. Again, the club provides these. They're basically built into our soldering setups. You can't miss them. And always wear safety glasses. When you're using an electric drill, do not drill toward any body part. Hands are kind of number one on that list, but your torso counts too. Always use safety glasses. Don't wiggle the drill while it is in operation, especially if it's in a deep hole. This can seriously run the risk of breaking a drill bit, and it can run the risk of the drill bit slipping and then puncturing your hand. You should also keep the drill bit spinning as long as it is in a hole. You should not drill halfway down or all the way down and stop and then try and pull the drill back out. A good chance of breaking the bit, and again, a good chance of slipping when it does come out. So as long as the drill bit is in a hole, you should have the drill spinning. Using personal tools is allowed. Members are allowed to bring their own tools to a meeting, but any power tool that they bring must be checked by a member of the executive board before they can use it for the first time. After that, as long as it's the same tool, they can keep using it. However, any personal tool can only be used by the owner of that tool. If another club member wishes to use the tool, they must ask the owner, and the owner must use it as the other member requests. Again, this is just a liability thing, but you're welcome to any club supplies. As far as robot enabling procedure goes, I'm going to have Anand handle that.
All right. So so this semester we have a couple more transmitters. What that means is hopefully instead of like the whole like pairing and stuff we did before every match, it'll be a little bit more easier for you guys to have the transmitters and use them yourselves at the events. So I'm going to go over this. I'm going to go over this again when we get to the events themselves. We're going to have this procedure taped up on the arena probably as well. But it's really important to follow these steps so that we safely turn on robots, because the most dangerous part about them is when they're turned on outside of the box. And we don't want that. We don't want to risk anything like Garrett's finger being chopped off again. So the first thing you do when you want to test the robot, if it's in either the test box or the arena, it's the same procedure everywhere. So you're going to turn on the controller and set it down externally. The reason why we turn on the controller first is so that it's broadcasting a signal and the robot will connect to the transmitter. If you turn on the robot and then the transmitter, there's a risk that your robot will bind to the wrong transmitter, and that can get really dangerous because someone else may be testing their robot somewhere else, but all of a sudden they're controlling it while it's in your hand, and then you lose a finger. So turn on the controller, set it down. While the arena doors or the test box doors are open, you cannot be holding the turned on controller. Then you're going to turn on the robot. You're going to remove the weapon lock, set it down or it's already in the arena. You're going to close the door, and after the arena door has been closed and locked by whoever's managing the arena door, they'll give the verbal confirmation. Then you can pick up the controller and operate it. To turn off the robot, we kind of do the reverse order. First thing we do is turn off the controller because we don't want the robot moving around once you open the door. Then you'll open the test box or the arena door, insert the robot weapon lock, turn off the robot, and then once the weapon lock has been fully set in, then you can remove the robot from the arena. So robot operation rules. You can test weapon motors outside of the arena under the supervision of one of us. So you can't just test it at a meeting. You need to say, hey, I want to test my weapon motor, and we'll come over and complete the test with you. You cannot test any weapon blades outside of the arena, period. You can also drive test your robot. So you can, if you want to make sure it drives, you can drive it around on the floor. Once again, with the supervision of one of us, you need to come ask us before you do it. Additionally, the weapon needs to be electrically disconnected. So you unplug the ESC from the receiver or the motor from the ESC. That way the weapon cannot turn while you're doing this drive test. And the weapon needs to be mechanically locked in place. So the weapon lock needs to be in place. That way we're just not risking any robots damaging anyone. Additionally, at all times, if the robot's powered on, you need to have safety glasses on. If you want to test the weapon, it needs to be done within either the arena, or if at some point we have another testing, like a test box separate from the arena, you can test in there, but we need to it needs to be approved by us. So you can't just build your own polycarbonate box and test it, because we can't verify that polycarbonate box is safe. It needs to be an approved testing facility by us. Weapon lock design. I'll cover this again once we're designing, but I'm going to go over it today so that you guys have it on your mind. So all robots with an actuated weapon need to have a weapon lock. They need to be designed so that they're very brightly, or they have a very high color contrast compared to the rest of the robot, and they need to be easily visible. A small, thin colored lock like a painted Allen key is not going to suffice. We're going to have remove before fight tags attached to all your weapon locks, just so it's really clear it's your weapon lock. Additionally, you cannot use a tool or a robot part as a weapon lock. So no Allen keys, no screwdrivers, because you may know that that's your weapon lock, but someone else may see it and think it's just a tool, so they pull it out. All of a sudden, your robot doesn't have a weapon lock anymore. It needs to be a dedicated piece that you're going to design for your robot. Clamps or bands vice grips are not acceptable weapon locks. You must be able to remove the weapon lock without holding the robot. So you need to set it down and take the weapon lock out. The weapon lock needs to render the weapon completely immobile. So the weapon can't have any degree of freedom. When the weapon lock is in, it can't move at all. Additionally, if the robot is dropped or rotated, the weapon lock cannot fall out. So it can't, if you flip it over, the weapon lock shouldn't come out. It needs to have some sort of retaining mechanism. And I'll cover those once we get to designing them. But it needs to be retaining all orientations of the robot. Some suggestions, a metal pin or plug that will prevent any rotating weapon from spinning. Additionally, we're not doing this just yet, but once we do get to metal in our robots, any sharp points, such as a blade or a metal fork, needs to have a plastic cover. So either a pool noodle or a custom TPU piece over the sharp blades, just so that there's no risk of cutting anyone with those blades. Weapon locks must be in place anytime the robot is connected to a power source and is outside the battle box or testing facility. So the only case that would ever happen is if you're doing a drive test where the weapon motor is unplugged. The weapon motor, like I already said, should never be on outside the box. Additionally, before you remove the robot from either the testing box or the battle box, the weapon lock needs to be in place in the robot. That's all I have for you on robot operation.
Okay, so this is the section on injuries. This is what we don't want to happen, but in case it does. So this procedures document is going to be posted on our boiler link in the Slack and
Boiler link and Slack.
so if you want to look at this diagram a little more, you can. Basically, we're going to cover two types of injuries: burns and lacerations. Lacerations being cuts and stuff. There can be three different degrees of burns. First degree burns are defined as burns that present with red, non-blistered skin. These burns are the least severe, and probably going to be the most common. In the event of a first-degree burn, immediately notify a board member. After this, go straight to the nearest bathroom and run the burn under water for at least 5 minutes before applying aloe vera gauze to cover the area. Secondary burns are defined as burns that present with some skin thickening and blisters. These burns are more severe than first-degree burns, but less dangerous than third-degree burns. In the event of a second-degree burn, immediately notify a board member. After this, we will determine what type of treatment is necessary based on location and the severity of the burn. If you're blistering over a widespread area, we can call medical treatment. Either way, run water over the injury. This is to clean the area, not to make it feel better. And if you have blisters everywhere, it might not make you feel better. It might, in fact, hurt. Use antibiotic cream to cover the burn, prevent infection, and we can follow this up by calling PUSH or a healthcare professional so you can get treatments. Third-degree burns, these are the most severe burns that we imagine you could be facing. These can be life-threatening. These burns present with thickness of white or dark leathery skin. These burns In the event of a third-degree burn, immediately notify a board member. You can't exactly treat that here, so we're going to call 911 immediately. The fourth kind of burn here is a chemical burn. So chemical burns can be caused by any chemical strong enough to damage tissue. These are things like drain cleaners, strong acids, gasoline, that kind of stuff. Note that sometimes a chemical burn can cause a minor. Note that sometimes a chemical burn caused by a minor chemical may not show up until hours after exposure. There are minor and major chemical burns. They're pretty much as minor ones are smaller. They present with redness, dryness, or burning sensations after coming into contact with the chemical. In the event of a minor chemical burn, notify board member, put on gloves, wash it, try to clean it up as much as possible. And again, if you want to follow up with healthcare or push, we will help you with that. For major chemical burns, these would be burns that affect all skin levels. They're larger than 3 inches in diameter and can cause other symptoms like clammy skin. In the event of a major chemical burn, we're going to call 911. That's just what's going to happen. Notify board members as soon as possible, and we'll call 911, probably even poison control. Just, we want to keep you guys safe. The other type of injury here is lacerations. This is just these cuts. We're going to be talking about 2 different kinds of lacerations: superficial, which is a shallow cut, and deep, which is a deep cut. I know it's crazy. Superficial cuts are shallow and they don't tend to be life-threatening. It's minimal blood loss, and the wound can be treated pretty easily with a Band-Aid or something. If you have a superficial cut, inform a board member so we can make sure there's no blood on equipment or just on like a table or something, because that's kind of gross.
We can also point you to the first aid kit, which is actually right up there. That'll be at all of our meetings if you ever need it.
Yeah, there's also a first aid kit.
Yeah.
The other kind of laceration is a deep laceration. Now, these are more dangerous depending on where and how deep the cut is. It could be life-threatening. These will be identified from wounds with a large depth and or a large amount of bleeding and blood loss. In the event of a deep laceration, some of these were modeled earlier, like Ray getting his hand drilled through and Garrett losing a finger. And if this were to happen, we want you guys to immediately call help from others, raise awareness of the situation, call things out like get a board member, call 911. This guy is bleeding a lot. Check the area for immediate dangers before you enter it to make sure that we don't have 2 people with deep lacerations. This includes turning off any high-powered equipment and possibly moving the person away from whatever cut them if you can't turn it off immediately. Apply strong, consistent pressure 2 to 3 inches above, which means close to the heart. So if I were to cut my arm here, up this direction. Press with fabric to stop or slow the bleeding. If it's not possible due to injury location, like if it was a finger, you can't press in the middle of their palm. Just apply pressure to the area, try to stop the bleeding as much as you can. If no one has called 911 already, do it. It's also important to call a board member, but again, we'd rather you guys be safe and not injured as much as possible. Call 911, follow the operator's instructions until the injured person get medical care. Yeah, that's it.
All right, I know some of the skits seem silly. That's on purpose. Hopefully it helps people be interested. But most of that stuff we either have direct experience with or we know people who have had that kind of stuff happen. I didn't even know this until earlier this week, but Ben Manning actually drilled through his thumb.
Ben Manning's our advisor.
Yeah, it happens. Solder, probably not soldering irons, but molten solder can and will sometimes fly up in your face.
Yeah, it really sucks.
Yeah, it can happen. And the molten stuff is just as hot as the tip of the soldering iron. So wear eye protection. It literally will fly. So you need to be careful of that kind of thing. And one of the most famous people in BattleBots, Ray Billings, the guy who is famous for making Tombstone, destroyed one of his hands completely with a robot accident. It's a miracle that he can use his hand at all anymore. So even professionals, even if you're being careful, can have bad things happen. So it seems goofy. This stuff seems dry and boring, but it is important. We don't want anybody getting hurt, and we don't want the club getting shut down.